Texas, the one state that every American has an opinion about. For decades, people have debated whether it's truly Southern, more Western, or its own independent world entirely. Ask 10 people what Texas really is, and you'll get 10 wildly different answers. Some will swear it's the beating heart of the South. Others say it's the Wild West that never grew up. Then there are those who simply call it Texas, because honestly, that name alone feels like its own category. Everywhere you go, the state has its own rhythm, its own swagger, and its own way of doing just about everything. People move here thinking they know what to expect, and within a few days, they realize Texas rewrites every rule the moment you cross its border. The food tastes different, the pride feels louder, and even the gas stations could double as shopping malls, where the South ends and Texas begins. So, what exactly makes Texas so different from the rest of the South? From its unmatched size and economy to its culture, weather, and even its history, Texas plays by its own rulebook. You're about to see how this state became a symbol of independence, ambition, and unapologetic identity. Before we jump in, know this. Every detail you'll hear today comes from deep research into what defines the modern Texas experience. Whether you live here, plan to move here next month, or just want to understand why Texans act like their state could function as its own country, you're in the right place. Stick around till the end, because some of these reasons might just change how you see the South altogether. If you think you already know Texas, wait till you hear what sets it apart from every other Southern state. Let's get into it. The size that redefines everything. Everything about Texas starts with its sheer size. You can drive for 12 hours in one direction and still be in Texas, with landscapes changing from pine forests to desert plains before you ever hit another state line. Texans don't measure distance in miles. They measure it in hours, because in this state, traveling from one major city to another can take nearly the same time it takes to cross multiple states in the Deep South, where one state feels like a whole country. Texas covers over 268,000 square miles, making it larger than France, nearly twice the size of Germany, and bigger than every other southern state combined. Its massive geography shapes its culture, economy, and even its personality. From the high plains near Amarillo to the beaches of the Gulf Coast, no two corners of Texas feel the same. Houston's humid coastal sprawl feels like another world compared to the rugged ranch lands of West Texas or the rolling green hills near Austin. This sheer scale gives Texas a rare diversity. It isn't just one region with one culture. It's 5 regions stitched together under a single flag. Each part of Texas could practically stand alone, with its own accent, climate, and way of life. That's why Texans talk about their state as if it's a country, not just a state. The distances are so vast that even weather systems struggle to stay consistent. You can wake up to snow in the Panhandle, hear about tornadoes near Dallas, and see palm trees swaying under a Gulf breeze before the day is over. Such scale doesn't just affect daily life, it shapes mindset. Texans grow up with wide horizons, endless highways, and a sense of independence that comes from living in a place where everything feels oversized. The food portions are larger, the trucks are taller, and even the sky somehow looks bigger. It's not arrogance, it's geography that built confidence into the culture, where scale builds swagger. When you compare it to the rest of the South, Texas feels less like a sibling and more like a giant cousin who carved its own path. Other southern states have charm and tradition, but Texas has space. endless, sprawling, untamed space that redefines what it means to live in the South. The land itself demands ambition, and that's exactly what shaped the Texas identity, the independent spirit. Texas doesn't just act independent. It was born that way. Before it ever joined the United States, Texas was a sovereign nation with its own president, army, and flag. The Republic of Texas existed for nearly a decade, a bold experiment in freedom that left a permanent mark on the state's DNA. That spirit of independence still flows through every Texan's veins. It's the reason you'll see the Lone Star flag flying just as proudly as the American one. This attitude isn't nostalgia. It's identity. Texans don't wait for someone else to tell them how to do things. From oil to tech to education, the state built its own systems to fit its own needs. Even today, Texas runs its own electrical grid. The only state in the nation to do so. That level of autonomy is rare and sometimes risky, but it perfectly captures how Texas sees itself. Capable, self-reliant, and willing to stand apart. Where history isn't told, it's lived. The independent mindset also explains the fierce pride locals have in their history. The stories of the Alamo, the Texas Revolution, and the state's fight for self-governance are taught not just as history lessons, but as a code of living. It's a reminder that being Texan means believing in resilience and the power to shape your own destiny. That's why phrases like, "Don't mess with Texas," resonate far beyond litter campaigns. They reflect a deeper sense of strength and individuality that's woven into everyday life. When people from other southern states talk about heritage, it often ties to regional roots and shared traditions. In Texas, the pride is different. It's more like national pride condensed into a single state. Whether someone's family has been here for generations or they moved from across the country last month, that independent mindset tends to rub off fast. You see it in how Texans do business, raise families, and even debate at the dinner table. Texas may share history with the South, but it refuses to be defined by it. The state's independent streak built a culture that stands tall on its own, just like it did when it was a republic. It's that sense of self-rule and unshakable confidence that truly separates Texas from every other southern state. The cultural fusion zone. Texas is where the South, the West, and Latin America collide to create a culture unlike anywhere else in the United States. Step into any Texas city and you'll instantly feel that mix. Southern charm meets Western grit, all wrapped in a vibrant Hispanic heartbeat. It's this blend of cultures that makes Texas so unique, because it doesn't just borrow influences from others. It fuses them into something completely new. You can taste that fusion in every corner of the state. One morning, you might grab breakfast tacos in San Antonio, and by the afternoon, you're eating smoky brisket that rivals anything in the Carolinas. The food alone tells the story of Texas. Part cowboy, part Southern, part Mexican, and entirely Texan. Tex-Mex cuisine didn't just happen by accident. It grew from centuries of cultural overlap between early settlers, indigenous tribes, and Mexican influence that still defines daily life today, where every voice adds to the anthem. This cultural mix isn't limited to food. You hear it in the music, a playlist that jumps from country twang to Tejano rhythms to blues and southern rock. Often within the same festival, rodeos and country fairs still hold strong in small towns, while cities like Austin and Houston pulse with international energy. There's no single Texas accent anymore because the voices here come from everywhere. Ranchers, oil field workers, tech innovators, and immigrants chasing opportunity, every region adds its own flavor. In South Texas, Spanish is as common as English, with traditions rooted in Mexican heritage. Central Texas blends cowboy legacy with modern creativity, while East Texas holds tighter to that deep Southern feel. The state's diversity makes it both familiar and unpredictable. You might walk down a street where a barbecue pit, a taqueria, and a food truck selling Vietnamese brisket all sit side by side. And somehow, it makes perfect sense. Texas represents what happens when cultures don't just coexist, but merge. It's not divided between old and new. It's constantly evolving, rewriting what Southern identity means in a modern world. That cultural mix is exactly why Texas feels so alive. It's a living example of how history, migration, and pride can come together to create something that belongs only to Texas. The economy that outsizes the South. Texas doesn't just lead the South in economic power. It competes with entire nations. The state's economy ranks as one of the largest in the world, larger than the economies of countries like Australia or Spain. It's not only about oil and gas anymore. Over the years, Texas has evolved into a global powerhouse of technology, energy, agriculture, manufacturing, and trade, all working together to create a self-sustaining economic engine that rarely slows down, where the future scales in every direction. Houston still reigns as the energy capital of the United States, with a massive concentration of oil, gas, and renewable energy companies driving billions in exports every year. Dallas-Fort Worth thrives as a financial and corporate hub, home to dozens of Fortune 500 headquarters. Meanwhile, Austin has transformed into the Silicon Hills, a booming tech corridor that attracts innovators from around the country. New startups arrive almost weekly, with major global tech companies continuing to expand their campuses across Central Texas in the next few months. This growth isn't limited to cities. The rural areas and smaller towns benefit from agriculture, wind power, and logistics, creating a balance few other states achieve. The ports along the Gulf Coast keep Texas deeply connected to global trade, while its central location allows it to act as a bridge between both coasts of the United States and even Mexico. That cross-border connection fuels billions in trade each year, reinforcing Texas as an economic gateway for the entire South. The absence of a state income tax also plays a major role in attracting new residents and corporations. Every month, more businesses move their headquarters here to take advantage of lower taxes, affordable land, and a workforce ready to build. From tech engineers to oil field workers, the state's job market continues to grow faster than most of the country, where prosperity is built in layers. What sets Texas apart from other southern states is how diverse its economy has become. While others still depend heavily on one or two dominant industries, Texas has layered its success across nearly every sector imaginable. That balance gives it strength during national downturns and keeps opportunity flowing no matter what happens elsewhere. The Lone Star State doesn't just participate in the Southern economy, it defines what the next generation of Southern prosperity looks like. The weather that's wildly unpredictable. If you've ever spent more than a few days in Texas, you've probably heard the saying, if you don't like the weather, just wait a few minutes. That's not a joke. It's a survival tip. Texas weather is as unpredictable as the state itself. You can wake up to sunshine, drive through a thunderstorm by lunch, and end the evening with wind chills that feel like winter snuck in overnight. This constant unpredictability makes Texas one of the most weather-diverse states in the entire South. The state stretches across multiple climate zones, from the dry desert heat of El Paso to the humid subtropical air of Houston and the breezy coastal warmth of Corpus Christi. Dallas might be sweating through 90-degree afternoons while the Panhandle braces for snow flurries. The sheer size of Texas creates its own natural chaos, where temperature swings of 20 or 30 degrees in a single day are completely normal, where weather comes with a wild streak. Texas is also a stage for some of nature's most dramatic performances. Thunderstorms here don't just roll through quietly, they arrive with lightning shows that can stretch across the horizon. Tornadoes frequently form in North Texas as part of the nation's Tornado Alley, while the Gulf Coast keeps a wary eye on hurricane season every year. The coastal regions often prepare for tropical storms pushing in from the Gulf of Mexico, while inland cities deal with flash floods, hail, and sudden heat waves. This ever-changing climate shapes how Texans live. Houses are built tough, storm shelters are common, and nearly every home has an air conditioner powerful enough to cool a warehouse. Weather apps are checked almost as often as traffic reports because a calm morning can quickly turn into an emergency by afternoon. Texans don't just talk about the weather, they plan their days, vacations, and even their wardrobes around it. Yet, for all its unpredictability, the weather is part of what makes Texas feel alive. The extremes reflect the state's personality. Big, bold, and constantly shifting. It's not a place for the faint-hearted. Surviving a Texas summer or watching a lightning storm roll across the plains gives residents a certain pride. The rest of the South might be humid or rainy, but only Texas can deliver 4 seasons in one day and still call it normal. The people and their pride. There's something unmistakable about Texans, that larger-than-life confidence that walks into a room before they do. The people of Texas don't just love their state, they live it. Whether they were born here or arrived last week, it doesn't take long before that pride becomes part of who they are. It's in the way Texans talk about their history, their cities, their food, and even their sports. That fierce loyalty to the Lone Star identity is what binds 29 million people from wildly different backgrounds into one unmistakable culture, where pride flies as high as the flag. Texan pride isn't quiet or subtle. You'll see it everywhere, on bumper stickers, billboards, t-shirts, and even tattoos of the state outline. Schools teach Texas history as if it's a national story, not just a state one. The Lone Star flag waves on porches, in classrooms, and outside businesses with the same reverence as the American flag. For many, Texas isn't just where they live, it's who they are. That's a level of pride that stands out even in the South, where state loyalty is already a big deal. This pride shows up most clearly in the people themselves. Texans are known for their friendliness, but it's a particular kind. Confident, warm, and a little bold. Strangers are greeted like old friends, and neighbors are treated like extended family. That blend of hospitality and confidence creates a culture where people take care of each other while never doubting where they come from. Even when Texans move to other parts of the country, they carry their roots proudly, often becoming unofficial ambassadors for their home state. That state pride isn't just emotional, it's practical. Texans believe in doing things their own way, from starting businesses to solving community problems. Local traditions are fiercely protected, whether it's Friday night football, rodeo season, or a hometown barbecue that's been running for generations. This deep connection to heritage gives Texas a sense of identity that feels both grounded and unstoppable. The rest of the South may have charm and tradition, but Texas has confidence. The people here embody a rare mix of humility and boldness, polite enough to say, "Yes, ma'am," but strong enough to stand their ground on what they believe. That's why Texas pride feels different. It's not just about loving a place. It's about belonging to something that feels bigger than any one person. Texans don't just live in their state. They carry it with them everywhere they go. The politics and power. Texas doesn't just play a role in American politics. It often defines the direction the country moves. The state's political landscape has always been larger than life, reflecting the same independent streak that runs through its history. Power in Texas isn't just about who holds office. It's about the influence the state carries nationwide. Its size, population, and booming economy make it one of the most politically powerful places in the United States. And that influence continues to grow with every election cycle. For generations, Texas has built its reputation as a fiercely self-reliant state, with a government that values independence and limited interference. That mindset shapes everything from business laws to education systems. Yet, what makes Texas truly fascinating is the balance of its old traditions and its modern evolution. The state remains a conservative stronghold at the national level, but its rapidly growing cities, places like Austin, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio, are changing the tone of political conversation. The mix of old-school values and new urban energy makes Texas a constant battleground for ideas about what the future of America looks like, where America's arguments land first. The population surge from across the country has brought in millions of new residents, each with different perspectives, reshaping local politics from the ground up. Texas has become a mirror of the nation itself, divided, dynamic, and deeply passionate about the issues that matter most. Debates over energy, immigration, and education aren't just local topics here. They often set the stage for national policy discussions. When something happens in Texas, it doesn't stay in Texas for long. The state's influence reaches beyond politics and into power itself. With over 30 million residents and a rapidly expanding economy, Texas commands enormous weight in Washington. Its energy sector, agricultural output, and technological innovation give it the ability to steer economic conversations that affect the entire South. The Lone Star State's blend of tradition and ambition makes it both unpredictable and unstoppable. Where independence isn't claimed, it's lived. Texas politics may evolve, but one thing never changes: the belief that this state can stand on its own. That confidence, sometimes defiant and always bold, is part of what makes Texas so distinct from the rest of the South. It's not just another state voting in elections. It's a force shaping the direction of the country, powered by people who believe in making their own rules. The diversity of landscapes. Few places in the United States can match the natural diversity found within Texas. The state stretches across such a vast area that it feels like several different countries combined into one. You can drive for hours in any direction and watch the scenery transform again and again. From golden deserts to lush forests, sandy beaches to snow-dusted plains, Texas contains nearly every kind of landscape imaginable, which makes it one of the most geographically unique states in the nation, where one road can cross three worlds. In the west, the Chihuahuan Desert surrounds the rugged beauty of Big Bend National Park, where mountains rise sharply from the dry earth and sunsets stretch endlessly across the horizon. Move east, and the terrain softens into rolling hills and green pastures known as the Texas Hill Country, a region famous for its wildflowers, rivers, and limestone cliffs. Travel further, and the thick pine forests of East Texas begin to resemble the Deep South, filled with lakes, winding creeks, and the kind of humidity that makes summer feel eternal. To the south, the landscape opens into wide coastal plains leading to the Gulf of Mexico. The Texas coastline extends for hundreds of miles, with barrier islands, marshlands, and beaches that draw visitors year-round. The Gulf waters bring a different rhythm of life, mixing southern relaxation with the bold independence tawny Texans are known for. Farther north, the Panhandle stretches out like an endless ocean of grass, where wind turbines spin across the horizon and storms can be seen rolling in from miles away. Each region of Texas has its own climate, ecosystem, and personality, shaping how people live and work there. Ranchers in West Texas deal with dust storms and droughts, while farmers in East Texas manage thick rain and fertile soil. The hill country thrives on tourism, while the coast thrives on fishing and energy. This diversity gives Texas a self-sufficiency that no other southern state can fully match, where every horizon feels like home. The variety of landscapes also explains why Texans have such a deep connection to their land. Whether they're hiking a canyon, fishing along the Gulf, or driving through bluebonnet fields in spring, they see their state as something vast and untamed, yet deeply personal. Texas doesn't just offer one type of beauty, it offers all of them. That's what makes the Lone Star State stand out, not just from the South, but from everywhere else in America. The cities that could each be a state. Texas doesn't just have big cities, it has megacities, each powerful enough to stand as its own cultural and economic identity. While most southern states revolve around one or two major metropolitan areas, Texas boasts several that could easily lead their own regions. Houston, Dallas-Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, and El Paso each represent a completely different version of the Texas story, creating a network of cities that function like independent powerhouses within one state. Houston is the beating heart of the Texas economy, a global center for energy, space exploration, and international trade. The city's skyline rises from the Gulf Plain as a symbol of progress and diversity. It's one of the most ethnically varied cities in the country, where you can hear dozens of languages spoken in a single neighborhood and eat food from every continent in a single day. Its connection to NASA and its booming medical and shipping industries give it a global edge that few southern cities can match. Just north, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex blends southern sophistication with modern ambition. Dallas thrives on finance, fashion, and business, while Fort Worth keeps the cowboy tradition alive with rodeos and stockyards that still echo the Old West. Together, they form one of the largest metro areas in the nation, an economic engine that continues to draw corporations, startups, and families from every corner of the country, where Texas rewrites its own rhythm. Austin adds a completely different rhythm to the mix. Known for its creativity, music, and tech innovation, it's become the state's cultural laboratory. The city balances high-energy festivals with booming tech growth, creating a lifestyle that feels both Southern and Silicon Valley at the same time. Down south, San Antonio preserves the soul of old Texas with its deep Hispanic roots, military heritage, and world-famous landmarks like the Alamo and the Riverwalk. It's a city where history breathes alongside modern growth. On the western edge of the state, El Paso stands apart with its strong blend of American and Mexican influences. The desert city bridges two nations, serving as a cultural and economic link between Texas and Latin America. Each of these cities feels completely different from the next, yet together they define the essence of modern Texas. The remarkable part is how self-sufficient each one is. Houston drives global trade. Dallas fuels business growth. Austin sparks innovation. San Antonio preserves tradition. And El Paso connects cultures. No other southern state has that kind of urban variety or balance of power. Each Texas city could be a state in its own right, but together they form something even stronger. A union of cities that capture every side of what makes Texas one of a kind. The myth and the reality. Texas has always been surrounded by myth, a place where everything is said to be bigger, louder, and tougher than anywhere else. From Hollywood movies to country songs, the image of Texas often looks like a never-ending desert filled with cowboys, oil rigs, and barbecue pits. While that version makes for great storytelling, the reality is far more complex and even more fascinating. The myths may come from history, but the modern Texas story is about transformation, ambition, and diversity that constantly redefines what it means to live in the Lone Star State. The truth is, not everyone in Texas rides a horse, owns a ranch, or wears a cowboy hat, though plenty still do with pride. The state's cities are among the most urban and forward-thinking in the country, filled with skyscrapers, universities, and cultural centers that rival those in Los Angeles or New York. Austin leads in technology and innovation. Houston anchors global energy and medicine. And Dallas sets the standard for corporate influence. Texas is no longer just about cattle and oil. It's about space technology, renewable energy, digital startups, and cultural creativity that attract talent from around the world. Even the idea that Texas is all desert and tumbleweeds is more fiction than fact. While parts of West Texas hold that rugged cinematic beauty, most of the state is filled with lush forests, coastal beaches, and rolling hills. The myth of the endless dry plain has given way to a new truth, that Texas contains nearly every kind of landscape and lifestyle within its borders. People come expecting an old western and end up finding a state that's more futuristic than they imagined. The myth also says that Texans are loud, stubborn, and unwilling to change. The reality is that Texas thrives on change. It has become one of the most dynamic, fast-growing, and influential states in the nation, precisely because it never stops reinventing itself. Its people honor their past but aren't afraid to shape their own future. The cowboy spirit never disappeared. It simply evolved into something modern, bold, entrepreneurial, and deeply proud. So while the legends of Texas make for great stories, the truth is even better. The real Texas isn't trapped in the past. It's building the next chapter of the American story. The myth gave Texas its swagger, but the reality gives it its power. That balance between pride and progress is exactly why Texas stands apart, not just from the South, but from everywhere else. The final verdict: is Texas still Southern or something greater? So, after exploring every corner of the Lone Star State, the question remains: is Texas really part of the South, or is it something completely its own? The answer depends on who you ask, but one thing is undeniable. Texas doesn't just fit into a region, it defines one. It borrows a little from the South, a little from the West, and a lot from its own imagination. That mix of independence, ambition, and pride has turned Texas into a symbol of American identity, one that continues to grow, evolve, and challenge what it means to belong to any one category. Where identity wears 10,000 faces. From its massive size and wild weather, to its cities that feel like nations, and its culture that blends everything from cowboy grit to global flair, Texas proves that it's far more than a Southern stereotype. The state's diversity, economy, and energy are unmatched, creating a world where tradition meets innovation every single day. Whether you're driving across open plains, eating barbecue by a city skyline, or catching a rodeo under neon lights, there's no mistaking that Texas is different, and proud of it. What makes Texas special isn't just its land or its history, it's the people who keep pushing it forward. Every generation adds a new layer to what it means to be Texan, turning the myth into a living, breathing reality. That's why outsiders keep moving here, and why those born here rarely ever leave. Texas doesn't just offer opportunity, it offers identity. So now it's your turn. Do you think Texas still belongs to the South, or has it become something entirely unique? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's see what people from every corner of the country have to say. If you've ever been to Texas, share the moment that made you realize this state really does play by its own rules. Stay tuned, because next time we'll be exploring another place that breaks boundaries and rewrites what we think we know about America. Until then, remember this. Everything might not be bigger everywhere else, but in Texas, it usually is.